When you were a young lad, did you dream of being a master of Concept 2 machines?
No, not at all. Like obviously the SkiErg wasn't around when I was a young lad, and the rower was deemed quite a privileged sport. Even the rowing machine was kind of like you didn't really use it unless you had an interest in rowing. Back then, obviously, functional fitness has made the rower very popular these days. But yeah, it was more for like the private schools, the fee-paying schools would use the rower. So actually, well, funnily enough, my brother went to the fee-paying school and I went to the state school because I didn't pass the entrance exam. So because I was dyslexic, they didn't find it until I was about 16. So I couldn't even spell my middle name or my address on the entrance exam. So
Are you the older brother?
I'm middle.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so we've got my older brother Alex, me, and then Eddie, the younger one.
Right.
So, but there's only 3 years between all three of us. So, yeah, my older brother got into rowing, and he's still got I think he got about a 6:15 2K when he was about 20, and then he did some like long ultra distances. I still think he's got a 100K world British record for an age group, I think. So he got into erging, but then he went into triathlon when he went to uni, and he actually did a little bit of on-water rowing. Well, I didn't touch the ergs until I pretty much retired from rugby union, which was about 31.
Well, in America, even though we're clearly full of functionally fit folks, it's still, you can still find in many, many gyms, bros just doing bench, just doing curls, and walking around with stick legs. So they wouldn't even dream of getting on a machine because it doesn't, if you can't hear the clang of the metal, they don't want to do it, right? And so how is it where you guys are? Is that the case?
Yeah, well, obviously, like I think since CrossFit was born like 15 years ago, those type of like box gyms have been getting more popular. Now, you don't necessarily need CrossFit now to go to a box style gym. They can be like a hybrid style or a functional fitness style, high rocks. But they're still quite exclusive to those places. So in the commercial gyms, you get old people using it because it's low impact. And then the commercial gyms, you get usually like young lads or just, professionals just lifting machine weights. So then the other type of gym in the UK is like your old school weight gym, like your like bodybuilding kind of rough and ready gyms. So there's kind of like three categories, I suppose. And it's only really the functional gyms that they actually get used, but they get used terribly wherever you go. It's very common to see them used very poorly. And it's only like, I'd say the last 3 or 4 years where people have really invested in the technique because of obviously high rocks is now so prominent, especially in the UK, and now it's, bigger in America. People are actually like, oh, well, how do we do these things? And since like social media's got better and I've, people like myself are kind of educating people. Very slowly, the technique's getting better, but it's still got a long way to go. You look at the Elite 15, and I could pick apart a lot of faults of those guys. There's a long way to go in the Elite 15, but it's only a fraction of the race, but it's coming down to fractions these days. So definitely.
Well, I brought you on this show because I've been watching your videos and I find them extremely helpful. I'm basically a novice, right? I mean, I played ball sports growing up, but I was never an athlete, right? And I found running and obstacle racing in my 40s, and now I'm finding hybrid fitness in my 50s. I'm 53 now. I know you're thinking, Matt, you couldn't possibly be 53. But anyway, so I started watching your videos, and they just make sense, right? Like you break it down to its simplest parts. You make low sense. But I want to start with, and it's probably none of these are short answers, and that's fine because we have whatever time you need. But one of the first things I learned was watching Jane, who is in America, the Erg Queen, right? Erg Army lady, Jane.
Yeah, Erg Queen. I don't know where
yes.
she gets that from. Yeah.
Well, she was talking
whatever you want. Yeah.
What's that?
I say you can self-proclaim whatever title you want, I suppose, you know.
Right. Well, one of the things that she said early on, which was people have the damper too high, right? And she said when she was teaching Tia that she set them much lower than that, like as like even a 3 or a 4, right? On the erg, on the ski, for example. But I think you think that's still too light. You know, too heavy. Sorry. What are your thoughts?
Well, it comes down to, I think with drag factor, which is where the damper setting, it's more important to educate people the why. Like, why is it important to set it appropriately? And so in general, she's right that a lot of people just set it too high. So what is appropriate? Well, you look at the formula of erging, which is the power is force times length over how many times you hit that thing, stroke rate. So the force is basically how fast you get through the resistance of the fan. Now, if it's too heavy, you won't get through the resistance with speed. So if you're getting through it slowly, the equation of force, which is, you know, being able to move in a significant time, it's going to negatively affect the equation. So, and that gets worse once you get fatigued. So if you're doing an all-out sprint for 10, 15 seconds, if you're strong enough, you can get through on a high drag. But as you get more fatigued, that equation is going to get worse and worse as you're slowing down. So as you get fatigued, you're going to get through that resistance slower and slower and slower. So what I say to people is, whatever the distance or the time you're on the erg, you need to get through the resistance dynamically. So basically you need to just leverage through and then let the fan spin. Leverage through, let the fan spin. Whereas if you're laboring with the fan, like you're trying to grind it through, you don't really get that after spin effect, which is making the erg work for you, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. We're going to come back to it because it leads into my next question. Because speaking of Elite 15, so my friend Dylan Scott, he's an Elite 15 racer. He is probably one of the lightest guys out there. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've heard of Dean Scott. Yeah,
he's probably 160, right? And in the early days, was getting beat more because remember the sleds used to be a little bit heavier. So now he's won races. He's in the Elite 15. He does a ton of erg work. He does a ton of volume. He's a good guy. People like him. People take shots at him all online, and he just jokes. He's just what you would call a good bloke, right? So yeah. I'm watching this video. I'm going to bring this up. I'm watching. I'm going to turn the sound off. What just happened? Are you there? I'm watching this video. What you say not to do, we're going to wait for this to start over, which is he's going way down to his feet, basically, right? Way down there. See that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, I watched James. Right. James says, come down to the pockets, right? The hinge and the pockets and come back up, right? Because all the spinning is happening between here and here on the machine. Right?
Yeah, fundamentally.
And I said
you wanna cut. So I can show you a force curve, and basically as soon as you engage your hips and pull the cord down, the fan is spinning as fast as it'll ever spin. So when you look at the equation, is you want to hit that peak more often. So once you've gone past that peak, which is round about, say, this angle, if you carry on going down or staying with the cord with your arms, you're actually detracting time when you can get back up and hit it more often. So by coming down here or staying down here with your hands or into a squat, you're just taking away from the time you can hit it more powerfully. So it's twofold. One is you're trying to stay with the cord where it's not as powerful, and also the time you're spending down there is actually fatiguing you. So it's a double negative.
So, and that's what I explained to him. And again, he's a sharp guy, and he, looks at all of his numbers, and he said, I think for me, I've tried it a bunch of different ways, and basically James is bigger and stronger with his arms, and that's why he can do it that way. But for me, that's what works best for me. Now, I suppose one could tell an athlete, listen, if it's what you think works, go for it. If you think you're racing better because you're wearing blue shorts, wear blue shorts. But do you think it's the kind of thing where if you actually sat with him, or a person sat with him and said, listen, it's kind of like with on Days of Thunder when they ask him to drive. Do you know that movie with Tom Cruise? That basically his coach tells them, like, drive the way I want you to drive, even though it feels wrong. And the tires last like twice as long, which means he's going faster longer, right? So it's like if you or someone else sat with him and said, listen, I promise you, you're going to come off faster, or you're going to come off less fatigued if you did it this way. Or is it possible that way is right for him, quote unquote?
Well, yes, ultimately you get good at what you practice. Now, just because you're practicing one way doesn't mean it's the best way. You just get good at doing it inefficiently, if that makes sense. So with things like this, is if I got hold of him and said, look, take a step back and spend 2 months doing it this way, eventually it would pay him back. But initially it might not. And the big argument is that he can get good power that way, but it's then going to cost him down the line. So my biggest argument at the moment is there's an 80 kilo bloke who has the world record for a marathon. Now, those that know High Rocks know that a 3:30 1K is a pretty good time. Not many Elite 15 are going faster than a 3:30 1K. So that's a 1:45 pace per 500, i.e. a 7-minute 2K, which is quite fast. This guy who holds the world record for a marathon on the SkiErg does 42 3:30 1Ks back to back, or 21 7-minute Ks consecutively back to back. And it's 2 hours 28. So someone said, well, that's even longer than a High Rocks race. So if you look at his technique, he's got to sustain that pace for 2 hours 28, and he's hardly going down at all. He's even less than me. So it's actually, I don't understand if someone says, but your technique is because you're 118 kilos. And I'll say, but this guy's 80 kilos and he does it like less than I do it. He hinges less than I hinge.
Yeah, I've seen the video where you compared the two, and he actually, he isn't coming down as far.
Back when I started, I was very much like that. I used to think bigger, longer, 35 strokes per minute when I was doing something fast. But what you're doing is, as you get to the end of the TT or the time you want to be on it, you just start fatiguing because you're in positions that the return on investment is actually just really poor. So a lot of it I'm trying to do is the education around just hitting the more powerful aspect more often than going searching for more length. So I could pull up the SkiErg force curve and compare it to the RowErg one.
Does it let you share the screen?
So let me just find that. It won't take me a second.
No, it's fine. While you're doing that, I'm going to say, Dylan, I know you're listening to this because I'm going to tell you to, and you're a good friend and you will. Get through World Champs, which is in a few weeks. I don't want you to change your form now, but when World Champs is over, I want you to take on this challenge. And
basically,
I think you can do
it. I mean,
allow it to be ugly, allow it to not feel right, all those things. Just like when you're trying to fix anything. Fixing a baseball swing, same thing, right? A baseball swing, and if it doesn't feel a certain way, and then you get into
an Australian high-level athlete, Joanne. She put a post up yesterday, and 8 months ago, you should see her row technique. She's
Talk about
Yeah,
Joanna
the
Witrick.
Australian. Yeah, she put a post up yesterday, and she's been on top of her game for a year or two. She put a post up yesterday where her row technique is highly common. What you see, especially for ladies with her body type, very tall, very rangy. And just obviously, she's had some coaching and some investment. I would to say that I got hold of and helped her. But just the difference in before and after of 8 months is huge. So it's out there. People that are good can still get better. I'm just going to share this screen. Hopefully, well, I've got nothing.
If not, I can try to pull it
I've
up on
got
my
nothing
end.
on toward,
If you can.
hopefully. Can you still see me?
The force curve.
Yeah. So that's ultimately what we're trying to do with the coach. And let me just check that this
Is this your deck? Is this the James Hall deck?
Basically, yeah, this is me. So what we're trying to do here, when you look at the force curve, the hips come in basically during this mound here. So with the row work, you've got access to instant leverage on your knees. So you build the speed with your knees in this section, and then you bring in your hips. Okay, so that's what we're doing. That's that's a good row stroke. Now it's not perfect for me because I'm not a rower. I'm not 6'4", but I understand the principles of driving your knees and bringing your hips in. And obviously, I was able to apply what I knew to the best of my ability to produce the 1,000 meter world record. But when you look at so that's a very common, no one's arguing with this. That's the force curve on the rower. When you look at the SkiErg, the peak it comes on almost instantly, because when you SkiErg, you've got when you're upright, you've got no instant leverage to work with. So what you need to do is you actually need to create it, and you come down. You don't catch the cord until you've broken at the hips. Now we've got a leverage to work with. So as soon as you engage the fan, it shoots up to this peak. Okay, so that's going to happen very instantly, pretty much. But the peak only stays for a fraction of a second. So the peak is at the kind of that point now is at the peak, and then it goes. So what you need to do is just let it go, and then get your chest back up so that you can hit it more often. Does that make sense to you?
It makes 100% sense to me. Like I said, I've been watching you for weeks.
Yeah. So I've got the world record for 2K. Okay. So that's a 129. So this basically what you're seeing here is.
And you're how tall?
I'm 6 foot. But
okay.
I must say that my biggest asset is my size. I'm 120 kilos. I can balloon to 125 if I don't watch my diet. I can also go down to about 115, 110 when I'm on point lean. And my strength, I'm pretty strong. And that's obviously one of the attributes that you need to be good at this thing, because the weight's good, but you need to be able to bring it down with some force with you. So as soon as I'm on the force here, it comes to the top peak of the curve. Now, past that point, if you try and stay with the curve, so if you're doing like what Ryan does before and you try and stay down there, Dylan, what Dylan does before is that as soon as you get to the peak, you are never getting any more speed. You're just not getting any more speed. So you might as well forget about the fan, get back up, because it's been its peak, it's going to keep running for you. And you get back up and you hit it again.
So what is literally happening when his hands are down here in the red? Tell me what is literally happening. The fan is spinning, but...
Well, it's spinning, but you're not actually gaining any more, because the fan should be spinning that fast. So once it's hit the peak, it's basically then working for you. And that's why the drag factor is important, because once you hit peak, the fan's going to slow. Okay. So you need it light enough that the fan, that once you've hit peak, still spins as it comes back down, and then we hit it again. And again, if it's too heavy, it'll peak, which will take a lot of effort, but then it will come down very fast. And then you'll have to put a lot more effort for it to go again. So the concept is tap, 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 tap the fan along, save your energy staying out of the red. So if you go into the red, what happens is the fan's never going to get any faster. You're staying with the resistance, but you could be up, not on the resistance, breathing upright, happy, and then you hit it again. So it's basically, it's just a total mindset change. And my theory, well, not my theory, my facts around that guy that does the marathon is just that. Like, why would he choose that method over another method? Because it will tire him out. He can't do that for 2 hours 28. So when you look at high rocks, you've got to think, what is the most efficient way? Because ultimately, yes, but you're not scored on the 1,000 meters, you're scored on the overall time. So you just need to get through the SkiErg like an obstacle. So I don't understand why people are doing that. You need to get in, tap, 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 get out. Because you could hold the same pace doing it my way as you do the other way, which is great. You think, well, your way isn't any faster. Might not be faster, but it's more efficient. So you'll get more time.
Yeah, so that's the other side of the coin that we see, folks trying to, what I call win the ski, right? And it's like, you can't win the race if you're right. And so we see it all the time, whether it's Elite 15 races or open men's. You see these big guys go out and they're first into the ski and they're first out of the ski, and by the pull they're walking, right? Like literally walking around the track.
Because they've got all excited. They've
right,
come into the SkiErg, and I've seen people announce to people, "Oh, doing your technique of 30 strokes per minute, I won the ski." Didn't say how else they did. You know what I mean? It's because they you
want to win the first mile of a marathon. Congratulations, go for it. Yeah. But here's my question though. So let's talk about the other way. There is diminishing returns, right? There is 8 seconds faster on the ski doesn't mean better for you overall, right? So forget about a marathon ski, just looking at how you want to run your high rocks race, specifically now high rocks, okay? Not just So there are points where you could be your most efficient and still be slightly fat. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like lose those 5 seconds in the ski, come out last. It's fine, right? Yeah. So how do you approach it as a race?
Well, if you upskill yourself doing it in the more efficient way, you won't come last. At best, at worst, you will come the same as you would have like heffing it top to bottom, but you'll be fresher. You want to keep the aerobic system going, which is tap, 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 staying light on the pressure often, than turning it into a big arm wrestle with the machine. So what was your question? Well, how would I approach it?
Yeah, just overall, if it's about getting faster on the ski / more efficient, where it's fine to not be. And if what you're saying is, well, you won't be last, you might be somewhere in the middle, but you're going to be fresher coming off of it than all the other guys.
If we look at, so I've just done a UK tour, and I kind of adapted my presentation. So I start my masterclass with a quick presentation of the what and why, so that when we get onto the how, I've already started to kind of connect the dots. Away there.
Oh, hang on. There we go.
You still got it.
Right.
So I pulled up this post. Okay. So this is 3 techniques. So this is the guy who's got the world record on the marathon. So he's an extreme example. Okay. Right. So he's
not even quite even at his pockets.
No, well, he's basically an adapted version of what I'm saying. And he's just doing it like he would be Nordic skiing, because he's a Nordic skier. But when you break it down, he's only, he's upright. He's going 50 strokes per minute for 2 hours 28. And he's only really hitting about a third of the actual length. He's just tapping it along. That's what he's doing. Now, when you look at the guy on the right, which is me, I'm not pulling it all the way to the ground. I'm going a little bit further because I've got that much speed coming down that I have to, like, I can't just stop dead. And I do want to extend that power zone that I've made. I do want to go a little bit further, but I'm also hitting it in the kind of 50s here. But you see, I'm not pulling it to the floor. I'm still using my hinge and I'm getting up and hitting it with strokes. So, and then this is like kind of the closest pace I would say to high rocks. Well, I wouldn't do this pace at high rocks. I would be kind of looking at doing about a 140 pace at kind of mid 40 strokes per minute.
And what is this? And what is this pace?
This is my 2K pace. So this is 129 pace. So the kind of high rocks pace kind of would sit here. So it wouldn't be quite as short and tappy as this guy. But it wouldn't be quite as long as powerful as this guy. It would be a happy medium. So I would say just tap it along with moderate force. So yes, you use your body weight, but you've still got to brace and engage your lats to bring it down. So it's going to cost you energy. So I wouldn't try and do 50 strokes per minute there, but if you were this guy, you would. I would just use moderate force with a moderate tempo that doesn't make me muscular fatigue and doesn't gas me out by trying to move too fast. So I would be kind of more this way, but just a little less force. So I just you want to use your leverage. So the biggest asset in the ski is your body weight. So you just want to tap it along. And as much as you can get into rhythm. So here I'm timing it that when my hips come forward, I'm coming off my heels. And that's creating a rhythmic effect that I'm bringing my weight up off my heels to bring it back down again. So it's kind of costing me less energy because I've found that rhythm.
Yeah, and the more I'm watching it, the more it makes sense. And watching the middle one there about how I like how you said sort of up and happy, right? Because when you're down, right, you can't be your lungs are more closed. Everything about you is down, and you're talking staying up as much as possible.
It's costing you energy to be down. So the further you stay over, your legs, unless you're squatting, you shouldn't be squatting. But even if you don't squat, your legs are in an isometric contraction. They're in a crouch. So the more you can kind of stay upright, so you hit it, but you want to be just that. You want to spring back up, hit it, spring back up. And yeah, you're just looking for efficiency. So by staying down, and the way Jane coaches it, she keeps people's arms out in front of her. So she's very squat. So I actually disagree with how she coaches it, which is fine as a coach. I can disagree. But yeah, that's where I'm at with it. So that's what I'm kind of.
Well, this is why I'm asking you. I listen. I want to talk to people who are the best at things, and I learn things. And I didn't know anything. The first time I touched a SkiErg, James, was Chicago 2020. I went to cover this thing called High Rocks. Right, Hunter was doing it and said you should come and see this thing. And so I said, well, I guess I should do the race. And when I got to station one, I said, what do I do? That was the first time I'd ever even touched the thing. So, I'm an open book with this. That was 5 years ago, but I'm an open book with this stuff. So what I liked about what she said initially, the thing that she said that stuck with me was how people with the rower and the skier, they're kind of like jerking. And it's like, she's like, pull down and then float up. Like, you're not using force on the way up. And the same thing with the rower, right? Like you see people kind of jerking.
It's a concentric exercise. So the eccentric, the recovery should be, you're not aiding anything. So you should be relaxed there.
So it's pull, recover, recover.
Yeah, basically. There's a few differences in our promotion of the machines. So we're just different coaches.
That's fine.
And the most important thing is, as a coach, whatever you're doing is, as long as you've got a rationale, and furthermore, if you've got a few examples and a bit of evidence to back up what you're saying, go ahead. You know what I mean? That's what I think about it. If you're just saying something because you think it. So what the biggest gripe I've got at the moment is, there's a lot of high rocks coaches and they'll come up with a solution It's usually because someone else has come up with a solution. They've just copied the content. But when you look at the content, you actually think, well, where are you getting that information from? Like, how does that make sense to you? You've kind of rationalized it in your brain, but you're not pulling it from anywhere. At least I'm pulling it from Nordic skiing, and I'm pulling rowing from rowing. You know what I mean?
So if I show up to your gym, okay, I'm 5'10" and a half, and I weigh about 185 pounds, right? Where and I'm, of wherever I am fitness wise, right? Like I'm not the fattest guy and I'm not the fastest guy, and I'm still early in my high rocks journey. Do you have bases of this is where you should set the machine and this is how many strokes per minute, or do you wait till you see people and say this is what I think you should be doing?
Yeah, there's rules of thumb. What works. So
that's the phrase I was looking for. Are there rules of thumb for anybody who's starting?
Yeah. It basically, you can look a little different because how you're made up. If you're lighter or taller or heavier, you can get away with different things. But fundamentally, I would look to see what looks right, what is looking good for you. And if it just didn't look good, I would change it. And typically what works. So there'd be no reason why 30 SPM is the best for you when my kind of mythology is towards 40 or even into the 40 SPM. So there'll be slight discrepancies, but in general, it's a bit like a squat. What works for a squat works for a squat. There'll be slight variations of what people think. Same with deadlift, same with bench. But fundamentally, to get the best score on squat, bench, deadlift, the principles are set in stone.
So when High Rocks came along, were you like, oh, wow, here's a sport that, it's two of the things I'm really good at?
Yeah, I mean, so when I started more on the education rather than the occupation, you know the word I'm trying to say.
Occupation? Application?
Application. So when I embarked more on the education side of things, High Rocks coming along was great because at the time, for a long time, I held the 1,000 meter world record on the ROERG and the SkiErg. Now, when you actually look at the relevance of that, it's not that relevant because High Rocks is actually, you'd be better off taking advice from the guy that had the marathon world record, which is, 2 hours 20 something or 17 or something like that. And you'd be better off taking advice off the guy that's got the SkiErg marathon world record because they're closer to High Rocks duration. So when you look at me, who's a 1K specialist in the ROERG and the SkiErg, I'm actually on paper not the best person to take advice on because I'm a sprinter. I'm a power endurance athlete. Okay. Whereas High Rocks isn't a power endurance. It's more endurance. It's just general endurance. But I have, I do longer pieces and I coach longer pieces and I look to see how people who do longer pieces. And that's where I pull information from. So, so it's High Rocks has been good. It's been good for kind of what I do and promote and my engagement, as well as things like DEKA and just general functional fitness, like the ants in the UK and like turf games. They all use the erg and they all use the concept 2erg. So it's been good. And as you say, with the likes of CrossFit. CrossFit pretty much only used the rower, and then as they got through to the semis and the finals, they used the SkiErg. But CrossFit's quite elitist, so as in you can't really progress past the open unless you can do a ring muscle up, and 99% of the population of CrossFit can't do a ring muscle up. So when you look at High Rocks, when High Rocks came along, every man and his dog, as long as you've got two functional knees, you can do high rocks. So the mass participation just went through the roof. But of course, that meant that the ergs suffered a lot. You saw a lot of average coaching and a lot of average erging because it's new to people. And in 10 years, it should look a lot better, you know?
How long should these things last?
What do you mean?
I mean, you're shipping these rowers and these ergs all over the world, and they do a lot of events.
Yeah.
And how long should a machine last?
Oh, you know, bit of services and maintenance, you'd get 20 years out of one.
Really?
Probably more. You know, all the parts are consumables. So like the cords and the bungees, the computers are replaceable. They get to a point where you think, you know, it's in a state, let's just get a new one. And the resale on them is great. So if you owned one, you could not touch it for about 5 years. Think to yourself, I deserve a new one. You'd sell it for 80, 75% of what you paid for it. And then you just get a new one. So the strong machines, they're worth owning, definitely.
It's just something I think about as far as a competition goes. And we did see one time where the first two guys got in rowers that weren't working, that they wouldn't turn on or whatever happened, right? So I think about that, like, oh, I hope something doesn't fail in a world championship race.
Yeah,
you know,
I think they always have like about 10% of reserve. So if you've got like 30 machines, you'd want maybe 10-20% in reserve.
So
if like wheel them in, wheel them out kind of thing.
So if I buy a machine for my house, I'll never have to buy another one. It'll last me 20 years.
Yeah. It should. You know, you replace the cords every 5 years. You give it a service every year. The monitor you might have to replace after 10, 15 years. It's pretty good.
Have you seen the new strength ergs?
Yeah, I have. And it just comes across as very remedial, you know, for the aging population. You can't get away from some barbell work, in my opinion.
So you don't think it's going to be a thing?
Well, not a thing for the market that Concept 2 are dominating now. You know, like exercise physiologist, perfect. Gyms, general, like strength gyms, no. In the home, unless you're 70, no. Yeah, it's a great bit of kit, and if they've made it and R&D'd it, it's going to be fantastic. I just think the application of it's not for functional fitness or the general fit population, personally.
All right, well, let's break this down, because if I don't know what the right term is, but if force times mass or whatever the equation is, right? If 50 kilos is 50 kilos, right? Why is it not as good as a barbell?
Well, okay. Well, you're just looking at replacing a plate-loaded machine. You know, like it's a linear, one-dimensional push or pull, which you can do on a plate-loaded machine. So it's like it doesn't really offer much over going to a commercial gym or using a barbell. So
I feel like you just don't like it.
I wouldn't say that. I think the angle you came at it was, you know, the usefulness in.
I'm just curious what a guy who works on a guy who spends a lot of time on ergs, what he thinks of this new thing. I didn't have an opinion either way.
Well, there's my opinion of it. Good in the right setting. But yeah, it's limited settings. It's good for.
Hang on one second. My battery looks like it's about to crap out. Hang on. Say it's not working. Bye, sweetie. See you later. My battery looked like it was dying there for a second. Oh, can you see me okay? This signal's taking a minute.
Yeah, it's slow down. Hey,
we good?
Yep.
So you have DEKA has found its way over there.
Yeah.
And And are you looking to compete in the strong?
Well, I did one around October. So I've had a bad knee since about March, actually longer than that. I've had a bad knee since December 23. I had an operation to clear it out. So I got back to some capacity. So in October 24, I did a DEKA Strong. I went 12 minutes 50. And I enjoyed it because obviously no running. But my knee was kind of like griping a little bit. And then fast forward now, my knee got worse and worse.
Oh no.
I've had a scan. I've got this bloody ganglion that's on the joint line. So I've got it cut out on Monday coming. So I've got a knee op. So plan is to get back fit and give DEKA another bash. I think I could go under 12 because the first time I did it, it was in Expo. And I had 100 eyes on me trying to, watching my reps. So I had to do everything clean as, which is the right way, I guess. But yeah, like my technique, so my box step over technique was very average. I didn't know how to do them, never done them before. My ball over shoulder was, I was like turning around in a circle. Kind of probably took it a little easy on the sleds. So I reckon I've got a minute coming off my DEKA Strong. So I'd get into the 11 minutes, sub 12. So I'd love to be competitive at that. But yeah, I run a gym in Australia called LFG Training. And yeah, the DEKA affiliate manager there has been very good. And he's helped me get it up and running in Australia. So it's mostly in Victoria, the state of Victoria, but I'm in New South Wales. So we got it going. And yeah, with the DEKA Strong's gone well. And I think what you'll find will happen with DEKA is a bit like the UK. So everyone can't get a Hyrox ticket, and things like DEKA have spilled over.
Mm-hmm.
So because the thirst for fitness racing is growing. So when you can't get a DEKA, when you can't get a Hyrox ticket, people are like, oh, what else is there? Then, you put your hand up and say, hey, come do this DEKA event. And then that grows. So, and there's also one called a Triathlon, which is some guys in the UK.
Yeah, I met them.
They've done a great job. And it's a great, simple concept. Like you don't need a venue. You don't need, all you need is someone to build your website of leaderboards and stuff like that. And they've done a great job in I think they're in the second year now. So it's a gyms host it, but like the DEKA Strong.
Yeah. I met that guy. And I think the only issue I have with that one is there's nothing, I mean, you can't trademark a workout anyway, but something that specific, I feel like there's nothing proprietary. I feel like you got to do something to distinguish it, right? Because anybody could say, all right, we'll just do that, but at my gym, and I'm calling it something else.
Yeah, that's the point. It is that. So taking it over to Australia, I'm actually taking it over, and it can be a bit of a hard sell because it's like, well, like my members, it's like, well, you could just program that anyway.
Right.
The point is, if you want to progress and you want to test yourself. So some people, they need to hand over, $50. They need to be put on a leaderboard. They need to get through to the final, and it gives them an incentive to train to get there. So, and then obviously, you got your branding, your back end stuff of the leaderboards, which is what you pay for. So yeah, that's the kind of fun in it, and it's like bragging rights. People like bragging rights.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. I'm saying from a business perspective, I feel like they might limit themselves just because it's just, do you see what I'm saying? It's just, well, here's these three things. Whereas with Deadly Dozen or DEKA, at least it's a little bit of and again, like I've Googled it, so I'm an expert. You can't trade, like you can trademark the word Hyrox, but like I could put on a race with those 8 stations and call it something else. They could still take me to court over. Yeah. But you see, anyway, I'm just saying, like, I think they might need to do something if they don't want to get, if tomorrow Concept 2 said we're putting on a triathlon, they'd be fucked. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%. So, but the ergs, there's nothing. So there's the World Indoor Rowing Champs, and they've actually now gone virtual. So you can't even now turn up to a World Championships. You have to do it in your front room or in your gym. So these kind of virtual comps are growing, because really, if you can connect the ergs, like, and you're trying to go, if you go like event only, you have to get yourself to wherever just to compete. So you're not really winning the world row indoor champs. You're winning the people that can afford to go and get the time off work to go. So I think the good thing about these ones is, you can. I think they do two qualifying. So there's a local, then a regional, then a national. So obviously, it's UK. So the UK finals, and then obviously what that would, the progress would be, is you go to a local gym that is hosting a triathlon. You go to the qualifier. So at least then that's regional, And then if you got to you'd have to obviously travel a bit to get to the final. And then ultimately, if you could get it big enough, you could go worlds, or you could even do, like a virtual worlds. Therefore, you could have, because getting everyone in the same place at the same time across the globe is going to be hard. But you could do a national final, do it in an expo, which is great. Top three then go to the worlds. They compete against USA, Australia, UK.
Yeah, they did. They've done them here. There was actually one here. I was going to go to it, but I was out of town for another event. Have you seen? So have you seen Deadly Dozen, by the way? And they've got their gym events.
Yeah, so they do one which is erg based, isn't it?
Like, well, they do a track event, which is kind of their big. Yeah. Hey, we're not inside the thing. We're at a cool track, and you run a lap and you do things. But then there's the gym events, which is they have a strong and a mile and an erg version.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good. And the good thing about that is the equipment you have anyway. If you're a functional fitness gym, you have barbells and dumbbells and kettlebells. The only thing I've got to gripe with that Deadly Dozen is bear crawls. Like, just take bear crawls out and I'd be happy and I'd do it. But yeah, there's no point. Like, I would do it and just walk the bear crawls and get a 0 for that station. So that would be all good. But yeah, I mean, you can't please everyone, and that's the point. It's functional fitness hybrid means that you have to be good at everything, I guess. You can't just pick and choose what you do.
But within that, we are getting, hey, I can do the DEKA Strong because I don't want to run fucking 8K at High Rocks, right?
Yeah,
like your mate that I just talked to, right? Your mate Chaos that I just talked to, right? She's not going to do a High Rocks, but she's going to do a DEKA Strong.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to run. I tried to do this whole hybrid thing, and it didn't go well. But I did a High Rocks. I went an hour 10, and then so DEKA appeals, but also like triathlon massively appeals to me, because it's ergs only, and that's ultimately what I do. So if I was fit and healthy, I would, that would be one thing I could channel. And especially as you get a bit older, in your 40s and 50s, you don't want to be spending, to be competitive at High Rocks, you have to be doing 15K, 20K minimum a week running to be competitive. To enjoy a High Rocks, you have to go for a couple of 5K runs a week. To not enjoy High Rocks, you don't run. You would get to High Rocks not running, and then you would have the worst time of your life. So, yeah, which is what would happen with me. I would get to there and I would just hate every second of it. When I got to Australia, all my gadgets and electronics, I had to find an Aussie converter to, plug everything in. And then over the course of, I've been in Australia for 5 years now. So over the course of 5 years, all my gadgets now are Australian. So when I come back to the UK, I've got to then find an adapter of Australian to UK. So that's why I had to go there, get the adapter, actually.
Yeah, I've purchased many adapters because I have them and then I forget to pack them, and then I get to where I'm going and I go, fuck, and I have to buy a really expensive one in the airport, and it's very frustrating. I've not been to Australia though. I would like to. And why did you end up over there?
Well, I finished playing professional rugby in 19. I finished up in 17 full time, and then I had two or 3 years playing semi-pro. whilst I embarked on my coaching career. And then, yeah, my wife's a GP, and we just decided to shoot off to try it for a couple of years before I got a permanent job. So off we went.
But you are your permanent job though. You're James Hall Incorporated.
Yeah. Well, when I retired from rugby and I was still heavily involved in rugby, I was actually looking to become a school teacher, like a head of rugby union at a prestigious rugby school. Like an American row coach. They try and get into the good colleges. The same. I was trying to do that. I was trying to get myself into a good school, and the thing is, once you land one of those jobs, they don't come around too often, and people don't move. So you get the job, and you're looking at like a 20-25 year stint at the school, unless you get offered a better job. So I was hunting around for one, missed out on a couple that I got down to the last 2 or 3 candidates, and then when I got knocked back after one, I just said, "Oh, let's just bugger off." So I was kind of like launching my coaching career. I was doing my training on the ergs to stay competitive. And then, I'm a PE teacher by trade. That's what my education's in. So I was just, there was a point in my life when I was about 32, 33, where I was just deciding what was next after rugby. And then obviously I just went full time into coaching and started off personal training, and then I'm online coaching. Then I opened a gym, and now I kind of specialize in erg coaching and doing these workshops and master classes around the world.
And you have nothing currently planned for America?
Well, the trouble with me getting to America is obviously the size of it. So I'd have to kind of have a very tight tour schedule. So obviously, like when you travel, one of the perks is networking. So sometimes arguably you could say that the trips, you could write it off for business, just for networking. You don't need to make profit, or you run it at a loss, obviously. But, to take time out of earning money at home to the cost of getting over there, I would have to coordinate maybe 5 or 6 workshops within, a week or two, and just coordinating that, trying to find the gyms that would want it. I'd have to get someone to help me to kind of coordinate it, like a bit of a tour manager. And then obviously, where do I go? Do I go the West Coast? Do I go the East Coast?
I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking, is like, okay, let's say you came to America, around, the New York High Rocks. So you're in New York, you hit 2 gyms there, then you do Philly, DC. That's like you come down the East Coast and you spend a week in America that way.
I mean, what I'd have to do is just find, obviously, if I could team it with something like that, it'd be great. Well, actually, I'm considering flying out for the DEKA World Champs. Stage 1 of that would be qualifying. So, but I'd want to qualify for the elite, which I don't quite know what time I'd need.
I could tell you right now if you'd like to know.
Yeah, you can. But so with being injured, what I'd do, because I've got the facility to host a DEKA Strong, I would put a DEKA Strong on the last day of qualification for the season and hope to qualify to get over to Florida.
12:24 is what it says right now.
So I'd need 12:24 to qualify for the elite guys.
You'd need 12:23, I guess. However, there are occasionally roll down. Some people don't make it. So if you were a little bit over, if you were 12:20, there's a few guys at 12:26, 12:27.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be pretty confident, because from what I understand, I did mine at an expo, and I understand that the gym ones are slightly faster.
Well, you can kind of rig the system a little bit, right? You can set up exactly how you want in the gym. So if it's your gym, you could set it up perfectly, right? And go. And I think that would be the way to do it.
I mean, what I might do is, even if I don't host an event, I might get a judge and film it. So if anyone questions it, I could, say, look, here's the video. I had a judge next to me. So I might, all being well, I will try and qualify. My daughter is actually, I think, already qualified. in the 10, 12 group age group. So me and her would fly over.
Beautiful.
And then once I'm there, I would aim to do a little bit of business in terms of getting some gyms. Yeah.
I would say, I think if you own the gym, I think you do have to do it at an event, but you could just put on your event. And even if you were the only registrant, which you wouldn't be because you have gym members, but even if you were one of one, as long as you're on the leaderboard that way, because you got to go through the system, you can't, it's not like a virtual thing where you just submit it.
Yeah. I actually ran one, as you know, Jamie came to my gym.
Right.
And actually there's a guy on the day who's a very good level high roxer. His name's Dan, and he went 12:15. So I think the times on the day were running pretty well. So
right.
I was thinking
Daniel Payne.
Daniel Payne. So when he did that time, and I knew, so I was like, by the way, mate, 12:50 is the time to beat. I was thinking to myself, when he did it, and I was kind of judging and running the event, I started to warm up, and I was like, right, hold my beer.
Exactly.
I'm going. And then my wife was like, don't you dare. Because I just couldn't, I started off warming up on the box overs, and then I grabbed the ram and started doing the reverse lunges, and my knee was like, no, you're not. Yeah, so I spoke to the guy, the manager. He came and helped me on the DEKA Strong, and they're actually doing an expo. Do you know when the cutoff is for the?
I want to say September. Let me look it up for you. It's pretty early because they have to send out all the emails, and the event isn't until December, but I think they cut it off in September. But let me look.
Yeah, so I know that Australia running one an expo, the Sydney Fitness Expo.
September 15th, June, July, August, September. So you got 4 months. September 15th. Yeah,
so the annoying thing is that the expo is like the 20th. It's the weekend after.
Well, that's
so
silly.
I would have to host one.
Yeah, do it.
So I'll host one in September, just to give me half a chance, and then I'll make plans. Yeah, that'd be good. That was always the aim, but the knee has kind of thrown a spanner in that work. So I'm having a knee op on Monday coming.
And then you can recover in 4 months.
Yeah. I reckon 8 weeks later I'll be kind of full training, and then I think I'd probably need about 8 weeks to get fit. So definitely doable.